Hi guys, Maikeru here. This is my Beastmaster Durzag guide. In this full guide, I cover every single role there is. So it's going to be a fairly long video with timestamps in the description for every single role. So if you just want to look at a specific role, just click that timestamp and it will take you there. Anyway, without further ado, let's get into it. First of all, I want to start with the requirements. I'm going to say you want decent combat stats around 90 plus range or mage. Without 90 plus, it'll probably be a pretty big struggle and not many groups will be willing to take you unless it's a teaching team. But just to make it easier on yourself, having 90 plus in these skills is highly recommended. Decent gear setup would really help as well. I will show the gear setups that are ideal later on and I'll speak about them then. As for recommended and helpful stats, invention perks can help tons. Enhanced devoted free to save you some damage taken. Then you've got things like biting and crackling and aftershock etc. that can increase your DPS. So invention is super helpful when it comes to aiding in surviving and dealing more damage. The same applies with herb lore. Overloads really help you tank more and then also helps you with your accuracy and damage, so those are pretty needed. If you don't have overloads, you'll probably splash quite a lot. You kind of want 96 plus summoning so you can have a pack yak if you're not very confident or if you're tanking, or a steel titan if you're pretty confident. You can get away with a war tortoise, but like I said, you don't really want to bog the raid down with like low stats. You can do it with a war tortoise rather than a yak, but people want raids done quickly and easily, so they'll much rather take someone who has a titan or is using a good familiar rather than something like a war tortoise. The last thing I would recommend is 95 plus prayer, so you can use torment and or anguish. These two prayers will help boost your damage with the respected style, mage or range. And that's it for the requirements and the recommendations. These are just my guidelines. Obviously, if you're going to a learner raid, you won't need every single one of these things, but if you want to really pull your weight, using all of this is super beneficial. Starting off speaking about the DPS setup for range or mage. Your inventory setup should look something like mine. You don't really need much prayer because the fight is pretty short. So what I have is I have a super prayer renewal and a prayer flask. That's normally enough even with my tier 99 prayer. I have a supreme overload and a replenishment potion. The replenishment potion is really useful because adrenaline can be so helpful after you've popped your thresholds and stuff. Then other than that, I take some brews and some sharks and some baron sharks. The only difference that baron sharks give over normal sharks is they have a slight heal over time as well. So if you don't have baron sharks, you could just take normal sharks or you can take rocktails. I take a steel titan when I DPS, but for people that are not comfortable with this boss, I would recommend first taking a pack yak until you're used to it. Once you get used to it, you barely take any damage at all and you don't need that pack yak. I take a shield switch just in case I need it for any reason. In case a pet tank or a tank dies, I can then fill in. I also take the Ring of Vigor switch and the Enhanced Excalibur. When it comes to the actual armor, I have a mage and a range setup as you can see on screen. Your setups don't have to be exactly like this at all. You can take other auras like Reckless rather than Sharpshooter or Maniacal over Runic Accuracy. But for the most part, this setup is pretty much what you're going to expect to take. So what I would recommend is tier 80 plus armor and have it augmented if you can. Tier 80 augmented armor is more than enough for this. And then I would also recommend tier 85 plus weapons, again with an augment if possible. The tier 85s have tier 90 accuracy and you'll be able to hit on the bosses pretty easily. If you only have like a tier 80 weapon, you're going to splash a lot and it's just not worth it. You're not going to do much DPS at all. So yeah, that's pretty much it. A basic DPS setup, nothing too fancy. When it comes to DPSing in the raid and the raid as a whole, this is how it goes. At the start, you need to kill the Erets and the Chargers. At the top, it should say how many things are remaining. When it gets down to around 22, the first pet will spawn. You want to kill the Erets when this pet spawns, but not the Chargers. You leave the Chargers alone, because if you kill the Chargers, it spawns the next wave, and the next wave has tons of Erets. So don't kill those Chargers, otherwise tons of Erets will come out and start slapping up the raid while you're trying to kill the pet. So only kill the Erets, then prioritize the pet. Once the pet's dead, kill the Chargers like normal, and then it will spawn the next wave. You keep going until the counter says 2, and that is the pet and BM. When it goes down to 2, that means the pet and BM are spawning to the north. So you stand in the middle with the DPS pile, pray range, and get ready to fight the pet. You obviously use your cooldowns, use your thresholds, get the pet down to 150k HP. We can't kill these pets because it makes Beastmaster enraged. We need to kill these pets when Beastmaster gets down to 750 150k HP. So what we do is we get him down to 150k HP, and then the pet tank can get it super low, ready for when BM goes lower. When the first pet hits 150k, you move on to the second pet. Get that one down to 150k as well. Then when they're both on 150k, you move to BM. When you go onto BM, you want to pop your death swiftness, you want to pop your cooldowns, and you want to go as hard as possible on DPS. When BM hits 750k HP, that means the pets need to be killed because BM cannot be damaged anymore. The pets will be super low from the pet tanks while you've been killing BM, so then you just go to them, do a couple of thresholds, and they'll die. Once both pets are dead, which really shouldn't take more than a couple of seconds, it's back onto BM. Then you just nuke BM down for the last 750k HP. There's one extra mechanic during this phase. This is bombs. Bombs need to be defused, and you need to run into them and click them. If you don't run into them and click them, they're going to blow up and deal 2,000 damage to the raid. So if you're not running into these bombs and clicking them, you could risk killing the whole raid if you don't actually help out with defusing. So whenever bombs are thrown out, make sure you defuse as much as possible. He throws out one for every person in the raid. The only other thing that can be kind of annoying in this phase is chargers. So if you do have a ton of chargers on you, you can kill them and then move back to BM. You just keep repeating the process of defusing bombs and back on BM over and over again until he's dead. That's as simple as this fight is. That's the whole fight in a nutshell. Obviously, this is just for DPS. So if you have a specific role, I'm going to be speaking about each specific role in this video. Make sure you look in the timestamps in the description if you want a specific role. The first role I want to talk about is being a pet tank. You're either pet tank 1, 3 or pet tank 2. I'll explain both of these in a second. For the armor and inventory setup, I just have it exactly the same as the DPS. So if you want to hear about the setup, you can go back to the DPS setup as I don't want to repeat myself too much. Most of it is quite self-explanatory either way. Using a pack yak to start really helps with pet tank because you can go through quite a lot of additional food when you're not 100% sure what you're doing. The ranged pet is typically easier to tank than the mage. The mage pet puts a damage over time on you if you're in mage distance, although you can stand in melee distance and protect from melee so you don't get the bleed. It's just a lot harder when it jumps away and you evoke it back because then you need to switch to protect from mage again and all of that. So having a pack yak definitely helps if you do end up getting the mage pet for your first time pet tanking. You'll probably need it. So now I'm going to show you the method on how to tank the pets. When it comes to pet tank 1-3, the first pet will spawn, as you can see the counter at the top corner having 21 remaining. The pet always spawns in the same place. He spawns to the west and you just taunt him away from the raid. So see where I'm facing him away from the raid? That means that they can't get hit by any range attacks. He will aggro some gobies here and there, but if he does that, don't worry about it. Then he'll randomly aggro someone in the raid. You need to make sure you have your Voke ready so you can taunt him back so the raid doesn't actually get hit with the ranged attack. Other than that, it's very simple. That pet should die very quickly. Just make sure you Voke it back as soon as it's finished with the gobies. When it comes to the third pet, he spawns about 15 seconds after the second pet and BM spawn. He'll spawn in a random corner, and usually when he spawns in the corner, he'll jump straight away. As you can see, he's in the middle for me and I've taunted him away. What you want to do is you want to get the pet as far away from BM as possible. The closer he is to BM, the more damage BM will do. This means you want to lure him into a corner. And if you're standing in the corner, his cleave attack can't hit anyone in the raid either, which is really beneficial. So you just want to camp in a corner and then tank the pet. You can DPS with everyone else with devotion and stuff because they don't really deal too much damage until 150k HP. When both pets are on 150k HP, everyone goes on to BM. So when he's on 150k, you want to camp your shield and still DPS him down. This means by the time they've got BM to 750k, the pet should be on around 20 to 30k HP. The pet being on 20 to 30k HP means a couple of attacks from people will kill it very quickly, so then you can get back onto BM. Make sure you don't kill your pet before BM goes to 750k HP because it makes him enraged. While you're DPSing the pet down with your shield, you can use loads and loads of defensives to save as much food as possible. So things like devotion, barricade, debilitate, all of that is super useful here. Tanking the pets is pretty easy, although you do have to remember if you have the mage one on you, he can put a bleed on you that you will have to freedom. The final, but definitely the most important thing, is whenever it randomly jumps to someone, you need to make sure you Voke it back as soon as possible. It deals a lot of damage to the person it jumps to, so you want to taunt it back off of them and get it back into the corner as quickly as possible. Sometimes it jumps a hell of a lot and other times not so much. Just be really wary with your Voke to get him back into the corner. For Pet Tank 2, it's really simple. You just wait until there's 2 more things about to spawn, which is the pet and BM. You stand up to the northwest and you then taunt the pet as soon as it jumps down. Help the DPS the pet down, obviously. Use devotion, debilitate, stuff like that, and then just use your thresholds to kill it as fast as possible. Obviously, we're not actually killing it, we're just getting it to 150k. Once it hits 150k, just switch to your shield, use defenses, slowly DPS it down while the rest of the raid gets the other pet low and gets BM to 750k. Once BM hits 750k HP, your pet will be attacked and killed. It should be around 20 to 30k HP, so it can be killed really quickly by everyone, so then they can get back on BM. Remember, always taunt it back as soon as it flies away, so whenever it jumps off onto someone, make sure you're evoking it as fast as possible. It'll probably get an auto attack on those people it jumps to. They'll switch to prey melee and they'll be fine. Just make sure you taunt it back before it hits them more times, otherwise they could die. And if someone dies because a pet kills them, then that's on you. The most important thing is to taunt it back as soon as you can. Once your pet's dead, you go on to BM like normal, and then you just DPS him down from 750k to 0. Make sure you're defusing the bombs and all of that good stuff. Another role is North Charges, and your setup should be as follows. It's the same as the DPS setup, except for I have an offhand Ascension Crossbow and Mech Chins. Mech Chins on the Chargers is so helpful because you AoE them down very quickly. The faster you kill the chargers, the faster you can go help the raid, kill the pets and get onto BM. If you don't have mechanical chins or if you're not using range, then Mage does have some good AoEs and you just use Tsunami and stuff. But I would definitely recommend range for this because the mech chins just make it so easy. When you're doing North Charges, just before BM spawns, you want to go to the northeast where I am. You want to open up the cages when chargers are in them, one by one while running around the outside. Devotion is your best friend here because it really helps minimize the damage that the chargers do to you. All you got to do is make sure you don't run too far away from the chargers so that they're constantly following you and don't jump to anywhere else. Once you've done all of the cages, you want to meet up with the south chargers. And you normally meet in the southwest corner so they all clump up. Swap to your mech chins if you have them, AoE down, and look how much damage you do to those chargers and how quick they die. This is why Mech Chins is so awesome when doing North Charges. You can just use Mage because it is decent AoE, but Mech Chins is definitely king here. Obviously, once you've finished all of the charges, you just run off, you go on the pets, you kill the pets down to 150k, get BM down to 750k, kill the pets, kill BM. The kill is as normal after you've killed those charges when you're doing North Charges. When it comes to the base tank setup, this is the hardest role, but it isn't too bad to do once you get used to it. When it comes to the base tank setup, this is the setup I use. I don't have full Acto yet, so I use a Pernix top. I use the Pernix top because it's augmented with enhanced devoted free and all of that good stuff, which really helps with tanking. You need at least 3 sets of Acto to reset your cooldowns, and it's super useful. So you can use 3 to 5 pieces of Acto whenever you're doing it. 5 pieces is safer, but you'll deal less damage, whereas 3 pieces is a little bit more damage, but a little bit more risky because obviously you don't get as much defense and HP from power armor or whatever. As you can see in my inventory, I have switches for power armor, so whenever we're doing all of the starting part, before the boss actually spawns, you can use your power armor. When it comes to my shield, I use a spirit shield and a penance aura. Penance aura obviously gives you prayer back when you get hit, and the spirit shield consumes prayer when you get hit in order to reduce the damage. This means these two things together makes it super easy to tank BM. You will still need to use some prayer pots because penance doesn't give you quite enough prayer to make up for what's consumed with the shield, but it definitely makes life a lot easier, and it's much harder to get one shot when you have a spirit shield. The rest of the inventory is pretty self-explanatory. We have our Ring of Vigor, our Enhanced Excalibur, our Bruise, Sharks, Rock Towels. We have a yak full of Rock Towels or whatever you need, and you're good to go. Another thing that you should really remember is an Adrenaline pot. I use a replenishment pot and it's so useful. After you use something like a barricade, you go down to 10% adrenaline with a Ring of Vigor. Combo this with an Adren pot, your adrenaline will go right back up to 50% so you can start using cooldowns already. Also, when you're confident, you can even just tank with your actual bow. When it gets to 750k HP, it starts hitting really hard. But before 750k, you can actually tank with just using a bow. You can help make the kill shorter and DPS him down much faster if you're using your bow for the early parts. It's only when you start getting high stacks and when obviously he goes in raised at 750k, you actually need to really be careful and use a lot of cooldowns. Okay, so now I'm going to show you me base tanking and just talk you through it. When Beastmaster and Tuz are just about to spawn, he will jump down from the northeast side. You want to taunt him straight away as he comes down so he doesn't go on anyone in the group. As you can see, the chargers are being taken to the north, so as soon as the chargers are out of the way, you can start running south. You wait for the south chargers to all be collected as well, so then BM doesn't trample that one either, and then you go into the corner. And then you stay in the corner with BM so that you're far away from the pets so they don't give him increased damage. You want to be far away from the pets because they do enrage Beastmaster. Then all you got to do is you can either use a two-handed weapon if you want to do some extra DPS, or you use your shield and your bow if you're not too confident. What I typically do is when I devotion and stuff like that, I'll switch to my bow, and then when I start needing some other cooldowns, I'll switch back to my shield and my main hand crossbow. All in all, it's pretty damn easy at the start. There's only a couple of things you need to remember. The biggest thing you need to remember is the stacks. You get stacks every couple of hits whenever BM hits you. Your defenses reset at 5 stacks, 10 stacks, and 15 stacks. So what you need to do is whenever you've popped a cooldown, you need to make sure that it's not close to 5, 10, or 15 stacks. Also, another thing that helps with stacks is freedom. Freedom halves your stacks rounded down. For example, if you pop a cooldown on 9 stacks and then you freedom, your stacks go down to 5. This then means you have another 5 stacks in order to actually go through before your defenses are reset again, which means you're free to pop defenses. But if you pop defenses at 9 and you don't have freedom to reset them, as soon as it hits 10, you're going to have 0 defenses and you're going to take a lot of damage. Freedom as much as possible when killing BM. When BM gets to 750k, the off tank will taunt off of you so your stacks can reset. BM goes into an enrage, so if you have like 10 stacks when he goes into this and you're not taunted off of, you're going to take so much damage. As soon as your stacks are reset, you're going to taunt off of the backup tank and then you're going to start tanking again. Rotate through things like barricade and devotion. Make sure that you're doing your best to watch your stacks and make sure they don't go too high and reset your cooldowns. If your cooldowns are reset, just spam E as fast as possible while using all the defenses you can. Things like freedom and anticipate aren't actually reset when he resets your defenses, so even though anticipate's 10% less damage, it is still super helpful. So then if the off tank goes low or your stacks reset, then just taunt back off of them and repeat the process. You keep doing this over and over again until BM is dead. Pretty much just always watch your stacks. Make sure you don't pop cooldowns before 5, 10 or 15. You just have to be really, really careful when it comes to 750k as well though, because of bombs. If a bomb runs over to you and explodes, it also resets your defenses just like the stacks do at 5, 10 and 15. As you can see here, my defenses were reset and I got absolutely smashed. I nearly actually died from it. Always look out for bombs, always watch your stacks. That way you're never ever going to have them reset when you don't want them to be. There's nothing worse than you having like a 10-second barricade that instantly gets reset because you didn't check your stacks. You don't want a 10-second barricade to be removed. The next setup is the off-tank setup. What I do is I take my DPS setup as normal, but I typically don't take a scrimshaw for off-tank, I just take a god book, but you can take a scrimshaw here as well. Or it doesn't really matter and it's preferable to you, you can choose which one you would rather use. I take a pack yak as off-tank because I have a lot of switches in my inventory. I don't have tons and tons of space for food, so I do take that pack yak just to back myself up. Mech Jins are awesome here as well because you help with charges. You take all of the south charges, which I'll show in a second, and then you AoE them down with the north charger roll before going to help the tank. Having free set Acto or Tempest switch is really, really great as well. So as you can see in my inventory, I have 2 pieces of Acto and a Tempest hood. That way I switch to those when I taunt off of the tank so I can get those really good defensive resets. So I take my Mech Chins, my shield, my Ascensions, and my Acto. Obviously you don't need all of these things, it just makes it a bit easier. So you can do it without Acto because you don't need those resets to do backup tank. But if you do have it, you might as well take it as it does aid you in this process. The same applies with the Chins. You might as well make it as fast as possible killing the south chargers. So the off tank has multiple roles. He has south chargers. You do it exactly the same way as north chargers, but you do the bottom half. So as soon as BM spawns, the chargers will spawn in the cages. You take them out one by one, run all the way around. Then you normally meet up with the north chargers somewhere in the southwest corner. If you both have Mech Chins, the chargers die within seconds and it's great. Once the chargers have died, you run over to BM and you start DPSing BM down and you're ready to taunt off of the tank when you need to. The base tank will be tanking until 750k HP. BM doesn't really hit too hard until 750k, and that's when he needs his stacks to be reset. So you taunt off of him and you use all your defensives, and then he taunts back when his stacks are gone. Normally when I taunt off a BM, I use something like Barricade or Devotion. You also want to watch out for your stacks. When your stacks reach 5, that means your defensives get reset. Freedom halves your stacks rounded down. So you want a freedom at around 3 or 4 stacks, so you go down to 2. This will allow you to get a full duration of at least Devotion and Barricade before they need to actually taunt back. If you've used Barricade and Devotion and you don't really have much else up, things like Debilitate and Reflect can really help you here as well. Then once he taunts back, you wait until your stacks are gone, or if he needs a taunt. Once your defenses are back up, you can taunt and do exactly the same thing until BM's dead. Normally you would only have to taunt off the main tank once or twice in a kill. Normally when the tank taunts off of me, I kill the charges that are on me to make it easier to reso and stuff. But that's just personal preference. The charges kind of get on my nerves, so I usually get them out of the way so I can get a free reso of a high amount of damage. And that's it for off tank. Just make sure you look at your stacks so you're not getting your stuff reset at 5. Or if you are going to get to 5 stacks, make sure you're just using your cooldowns before that happens. Always try to pay attention to your stacks on your debuff bar. I got it! That's so awesome. Got him on 104, yeah. Anyway, that's it for this video. Do give it a like if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you're new for loads of RuneScape free content. And until next time, see ya.